Alright, welcome to AP Stats Quideo number 1. This question is basically analyzing chemicals found in clay samples from 3 different sites and using the percent of the weight that those chemicals hold to identify which site that it came from. Part A asks, for chemical Z, describe how the percents found in the pieces of pottery are similar and how they differ among the 3 sites. So when you reference back to the box plots, you can see that for chemical Z, the median is pretty much 7% of total weight across the board. You see it here from site 1, 7%, here from site 2, 7%, and here from site 3, 7%. So this is a similarity that you see across the board for all 3 sites. One difference, however, is the spread. So you can see on the box plot that site 1 and site 3 have a fairly large spread. From site 3, it's the largest. It ranges from 3% to 11% of the total clay weight, and site 1 is spread between 4% and 10%. Site 2 had the smallest range from 6 to 8, and that's a difference that you can see there. And then another similarity across the board, not as important for this problem, but you can tell that there are no outliers at all. So then moving on to question B, it says consider a piece of pottery known to have originated at one of the 3 sites, but the actual site is not known. So part A says, suppose an analysis of the clay reveals that the sum of the percents of the 3 chemicals X, Y, and Z is 20.5%. Based on the box plots, which site, 1, 2, or 3, is the most likely site where the piece of pottery originated, and to justify your choice. So I believe that that clay sample must have come from site 3, and to justify that, I calculated the sum of all the different chemical percentages from the different sites. So all the chemicals added up from site 1 was 25% of the total weight. Site 2 was 16% of the total weight, and site 3 was 20% of the total weight, which is the closest in comparison to that 20.5% of that clay sample that was found. Then moving on to part 2 of part B, it basically is asking if you could only choose one of the chemicals, which would be the best to use as a tool to identify which site the clay came from. So even just at first glance, maybe not even looking at the percent of total weight labels, you can definitely tell that chemical Y stands out in its variety and where the median is. So all the way up here for site 1, down here for site 2, and then back up here for site 3. It's definitely much different than chemicals X and Z. They definitely stay more neutral and more consistent throughout the graph. And so I translated that over here, and I have basically a breakdown of every single chemical that's used to identify the clay pieces. And so when you look at it, it has a site 1 spread, site 1 median, site 2, blah, blah, blah. And when you look at chemical Y, it definitely has the most variety. And then this is really, really important because, again, you're looking at the medians for chemical X, 7, 6, and 6. The medians for chemical Z, 7, 7, and 7. But then you look at chemical Y and you have 13, 3, and 7. So when you have this clay from a random place and you want to just track it back to a specific site, that median is a really, really great identifying tool for which site it came from because each one is so distinct. You would be able to tell exactly where it came from.